Daisy was determined to finish the argument with the last word. She wanted to land the final blow, unaware of how deeply her words would cut. And then she said it. "You argue far too much for a man. No wonder you're so small there." The moment the insult slipped out, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The tension didn't explode into shouting, it collapsed into a heavy, suffocating silence. Raymond didn't yell, didn't snap back, didn't even raise his voice. He just froze. His jaw tightened, his fists curled slightly, and his eyes clouded with something far heavier than anger, pain, humiliation, and a wound Daisy had never meant to inflict. Without a word, he turned and walked away. Daisy stood frozen, waiting for him to return and argue, to storm back into the room, to fight with her as he always did. But he didn't. The quiet, the unbearable stillness, cut deeper than any outburst ever could. Their fights had always followed a pattern, a storm that raged but always ended in reconciliation. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but even their arguments carried a familiar rhythm. This time was different. That night, Raymond never returned to their bed. Daisy told herself he only needed space, that he would slip in after she had fallen asleep. She believed by morning, everything would return to normal. But when she reached across the sheets the next day, his side was cold and empty. A restless unease grew in her chest. She searched the house, moving through the kitchen, the living room, and finally finding him in the guest room, sitting quietly on the edge of the bed. He wasn't sulking, wasn't furious, wasn't even visibly upset. He was simply there, silent, withdrawn, hollow. She lingered in the doorway, waiting for him to speak. When nothing came, she broke the silence. "Raymond?" she asked gently. No answer. "Why are you sleeping in here?" Still, nothing. She pressed on. Was he angry? Would he come back to their bed? But he barely looked at her. When he finally did speak, it wasn't with rage or desperation. His voice was low, quiet, and so heavy it carried more weight than any shouting ever could. Days slipped by with nothing changing. Daisy convinced herself he just needed time, that things would naturally return to normal. But they didn't. Raymond withdrew completely. When she entered a room, he left. When she tried to talk, he barely gave her a glance. When she reached for him, he pulled away. This wasn't anger anymore, it was something darker, something final. It felt like he had erased her from his life without explanation. Desperate, Daisy tried to reconnect in the ways she knew best, cooking his favorite meals, leaving him notes, offering small gestures of affection. But nothing reached him. Slowly, she realized this wasn't just another fight. This was a fracture, something fragile breaking beyond repair. Jokes fell flat. Her touches made him stiffen. That's when it hit her. The arguments she once relied on as proof of his care were no longer enough. The silence between them was louder than any shouting match, more revealing than any fight. Her words hadn't just hurt him in that moment, they had ripped open old wounds he had buried deep. Raymond had always been self-conscious about his body. As a teenager, he had been mocked, teased, dismissed, cruel whispers that had followed him into adulthood. Past betrayals had left scars he never wanted to expose again. With Daisy, he had felt safe, loved, unburdened, until that night. Her words had dragged him back into memories of shame and humiliation. Only this time, the cruelty hadn't come from strangers. It came from the one person he trusted most. For the first time in their marriage, he wasn't sure he could look at her the same way again. Daisy waited, hoping time would heal what she had broken. But the more days passed, the further away he drifted. One evening, desperate to bridge the distance, she walked into the guest room, expecting to see him absorbed in his phone. Instead, the room was empty. The shower was running, his phone resting on the bed. A notification blinked on the screen. Her stomach dropped as she read it, legal correspondence about divorce. Panic gripped her chest. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't just anger. Raymond was preparing to leave. When he emerged from the bathroom, calm but resolute, Daisy's voice trembled. "Are you really considering leaving, over one argument?" He looked at her, not with fury, not with sorrow, but with emptiness. His voice was steady, deliberate. "You think this is just about that night?" And in that moment, she understood. It wasn't only about her cruel words, it was about years of small cracks, unresolved fights, and a foundation slowly eroding beneath them. The insult had simply been the final blow. Desperation consumed her. She apologized endlessly, through words, through meals, through notes, through every attempt to spark conversation. Anything to pull him back. But his responses remained cold, short, detached. Fear clawed at her. She didn't dare ask if he still wanted their marriage. His silence was enough of an answer. Then one evening, as she passed the guest room, she froze. A suitcase lay open on the bed, half-packed. Her body moved before her mind caught up. She stepped inside. "Are you really leaving?" she whispered. Raymond gripped the suitcase handle, paused, and looked at her with unflinching honesty. "I don't know if I can get past this." Her heart collapsed. She had braced herself for rage, for an eruption of resentment. Instead, she was met with quiet uncertainty, heavier than any fight. Tears blurred her vision. Pride fell away. "I love you," she choked out. "I made a mistake. I wish I could take it back. Just tell me what I can do." For a brief moment, his expression shifted, hesitation, conflict, a flicker of something more than emptiness. Then he spoke softly. "You can't take back what you said. And I can't unhear it." Her chest tightened. But then, almost reluctantly, he added, "Maybe I don't want to walk away. Not yet." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a promise. It was fragile, uncertain hope, and it was all Daisy had left to cling to. That night, he didn't leave. But the wound remained, raw and unhealed. Daisy understood the road ahead would be long. Some scars, she realized, don't fade easily.